the state of Texas, and within 48 hours after that, the judgment was vacated and the case was non-suited. We need principled conservatives who are not afraid to stand up and defend their principles.
Governor Dewhurst is a strong Christian. I've heard him speak often about attending Mass at Second Baptist Church in Houston, and he always talks about where have we gone as a culture? Where have we gone from the culture that he grew up in, where families were mom and a dad, where putting children first and sacrificing for the future was what families care about. Where is our culture today? I think our culture is adrift. Governor Dewhurst does not support gay marriage. He supports marriage between a man and a woman. He thinks that is the best for raising children. Now, President Obama, he's a constitutional lawyer from Harvard, and they can come up with arguments for anything. And we've seen him in just 2 weeks change his suit. And he was against it before for political purposes, now he's for it. Sometimes it makes you wonder, can people say anything to get elected? And I think that's what he did a few years ago. We need to go to Washington. We need to get back to our traditional values.
I've been pretty clear and consistent on this the entire time, that I do believe that the definition of a marriage is between a man and a woman. Was kind of challenged in a debate we had one time when someone said, well, do you think that your faith might get in the way of all the decisions that you're making here? I said, you know what, I'm running and I'm not going to ever apologize for my faith. It's the core of who I am. I'm running because as a citizen of this great state and this country, I want to support the pillars that made America great. And one of them is the marriage between a man and a woman, Adam and Eve. And if so blessed to be at home raising a child, not just a father, but a dad. This country has way too many fathers. We need more dads. I also want to go out and I want to defend the things that are good for people. The moral values. I don't care about being America's Sunday school teacher. I don't want to be America's pastor, but we have to stand up through our actions as leaders of this country so that these young kids see what I did. When I grew up, and I know many of you in this room here, you looked a man and a woman in the eye and you said, yes, ma'am, and you said, please, and you said, thank you. There were manners. The moral fiber of this country is sliding.
Marriage must be defined as between a man and a woman. To me, it's a faith issue. Faith issues have always been at the center of who I am, and they've always been the focus of my decisions, either on a professional or on a personal basis. I think, as I mentioned earlier, that's why I've got some of the most conservative pastors in the state. Pastors that usually never step out, that have gotten involved. People like David Dykes, Robert Jeffers, those folks. Because they understand where I stand on these issues, they understand how important those issues are, and they understand how I would deal with those. We need to understand, though, that it goes much beyond the civil issue. We're losing the fundamental Christian Judeo underpinnings of our nation. We need to understand that our country was founded on a concept. That concept was equality-led democracy. That democracy, however, demands and necessitates morality. John Adams said, the Constitution was made for religious and moral people. And you can't have morality without God. It comes back to being a faith issue.
I know that marriage is between a man and a woman. It's not just what I believe, it's what Jesus said. He said, didn't you know that God created a man and woman, and the man is to leave his family and cleave to his wife, and the two shall become one. Jesus made it plain. People are going to try to argue and have been arguing that Jesus never talked about it. I think that's pretty direct on how he thinks about marriage. But you know what? I think we have a problem because we've let the federal government define things for us that were defined by God in the Bible, and we've got to take this out of their hands. Just like abortion, we've got to file legislation that takes this out of the hands of radical activist judges and puts it back in the home, puts it back in the church. Those are the people that should be making the decisions. But beyond that, we're going to need legislators who are going to get up and fight the hate crimes laws that will tell every pastor in America, if you say anything about homosexuality in the pulpit, you're going to jail. We're going to need legislators who will stand up to fight them, to repeal them, and make sure that doesn't happen. It has happened in other countries. They have gone to jail. They've paid fines because they stood up for what the Word of God said. And you know what? My faith will determine exactly what I say and do in office. If people don't like that, God bless them still. That's still why I'm running, because God called me to run, not because it was going to win or get me any sort of polling or popularity. This is about God's Word and our faith and our action on it.
This next question is for all of you, and I would like to begin with Mr. Leppert. We'll continue to your left and on down the table. And I want to come back to a topic that we talked a little bit about earlier, And that's the word bipartisanship, which could be called a dirty word in some instances, and it depends on the person that is running in some instances. Many Americans, including this one, are tired of partisan gridlock. People like Olympia Snow are retiring because of it. She listed that as one of the major reasons that she's leaving the Senate this year, because nothing is getting done because of partisan gridlock. If President Obama wins re-election, will it be more important for the Republican Party and for Republicans in Congress to be more open to working with the president to get something, anything done, or to continue to fight the president, dig in the Republican Party's heels, and hope for a Republican White House in 2016?
It's going to be important for us as Republicans and us as conservatives to not talk about the conservative agenda, but instead to implement the conservative agenda. For too long, on our side too, we've had people who love to go out and make speeches. They're great at the rhetoric, but they can't get anything done. We need to have leaders, not politicians. And I believe that's what I offer in this. I've run organizations, a variety of different organizations, small and medium to large. I've never compromised my principles, but I've always brought people over to my side. That's what we have to have. People that actually produce results, not speech. When I came into Dallas City government, it was viewed as dysfunctional. Absolutely nothing could get done. I had more people on the other end of the political spectrum than I did mine. We got more done than has been done in decades because we brought those people over to good, strong, conservative fiscal principles, and we got something done. It's not talking about it. We need to have accountability and responsibility, and you don't hear people up here, and you don't hear politicians talking about it. We need to get things done. It needs to be consistent with good conservative principles.
I've said it many times before. I don't agree with most of what those people say and do in the Senate, but I'm going to treat every one of them with love and respect. I'm not interested in just getting on Fox News so I can call names and point fingers. I'm going to do what Christ told me to do, treat them all with love and respect. So if the only thing Harry Reid and I can agree on is blueberry pancakes for breakfast, I'm taking the man out to breakfast. Because my goal is to reach him with the love of Christ, not to control and manipulate him into doing what I want to do. But I'll tell you this much, every person that was won by the love of Christ quickly came to his way of thinking. And that's what we need to be focused on. I have a master's degree in dispute resolution to do mediation, negotiation, and conflict management. Something I think we're going to need in the Republican Party alone when this election is over. When the name calling has stopped for the time, because it doesn't make a lot of money. My passion is going to be for getting our party on the same page and getting the job done. And doing something for the sake of doing something is rarely a fruitful effort. I'm not going to do something just because nothing's been done. There have been many days I have praised God for partisan gridlock in this country.
I will approach it from a different standpoint. I will go to these Democrats on the other side, whether it's Schumer from New York or Boxer from California. I will say, do you not have any smart people in your state? And I will say, do you realize that the Constitution says that your citizens in your state should be dealing with education and the environment and energy, and et cetera, and trying to remind them of what the Founding Fathers put in place for us. And then that's one area that I will work my best to say, let's turn this back to your smart folks in your state, because that's what the book says we need to do. Secondly, unlike most Republicans in the Congress, I will stand up against the evil communist nations like China that are stealing our jobs. And I will work with the Democrats and say, I'm with you. I like that gospel you're preaching about taking care of the United States of America, okay? And I will help fight against unfair foreign competition. If the rule tonight were you cannot leave this room except in American-made clothing, the exit would be obscene. And you know that I'm telling the truth. That's one example of an entire industry that's been wiped out, I believe, by unfair competition. Ross Perot was right.
You know, there are worse things in life than gridlock. I have a cynical friend of mine who says that he wishes the First Amendment had ended after the fifth word. Congress shall make no law. If that had been the case the last 3 years, we wouldn't have Obamacare, we wouldn't have Dodd-Frank, we wouldn't have a $900 billion porculus plan, and we wouldn't have a $16 trillion national debt that's bigger than our GDP. Your question, if Obama's reelected, would I work in a bipartisan way? No. I intend to lead the fight to stop every bit of the Obama agenda. And let me say more broadly, I don't think the problem in Washington is too much principle in Republicans. There have been way too many milquetoast Republicans that run and hide from a fight.
Taylor, getting things done starts with strong principles and an insatiable will to get progress made. You're sick and tired of gridlock. I'm sick and tired of a big government that sticks its hand into my pocket and takes my money. I'm sick and tired of a big government that sends the EPA down here to tell farms and factories how they could operate. I'm sick of a big government that comes down here with the NLRB and other government agencies and tells the people in this audience what they should do. You're sick of gridlock, I'm sick of debt. So I want people that are going to go to Washington like Governor Dewhurst and lead and get things done. It's not easy to get things done in Austin. He's got things done. He's cut taxes. He's cut spending. That's leadership. When Ted makes comments like timid, I think, how could a timid guy get things done? How could a guy who served in the CIA and the Air Force lead and get the things done that have made Texas the best state in the nation? We don't need to worry about compromise. We need to worry about people with principles that will stop the cascade of debt.
On my way to playing in a Super Bowl along the way, I had to play with black guys, white guys, brown guys. I had to learn how to work with them. They voted me captain all the way through that. Those same leadership and discipline qualities that I had as an athlete is what has allowed me to be a successful business person for the last 30 years. I'm a rancher, a real estate man, and a real estate developer. Every time I put a project together, I have countless numbers of bodies and different groups that I have to bring together to understand what we're trying to accomplish. Not everyone always agrees with the way that I'm going. City councils, finance teams, water departments. You have to bring folks together to learn how to get to where you want to be. What's politics? Politics is the art of selling an idea. I've been selling ideas all my business life. And right now, we are right now in gridlock because we don't have people who have vision. I don't care about being a senator. I care about going up there and doing the work of we the people. So therefore, when I take a stand in a position, I'm going to do what you and I want from Real Street to get done with a steel backbone of having to live through Real Street. That's what you have to do.
All right, this one is for Mr. Cruz. It's been said that you can recite the Constitution from memory. Is that true?
When I was in high school, I could, and it was a shortened mnemonic version, so it was not word for word, but it was a mnemonic version of the entire thing.
Well, I read that on the internet, so it must be true, right? As always it is. But
If we talk about Area 51, I read that on the internet.
Okay. Once again, I'm kind of double dipping here. Given the contentious climate of our nation's capital, how far are you willing to go across the aisle to get things done?
Well,
Like a good lawyer, I'm asking the same question twice. That's for Mr. Cruz.
you are, and you know what? The question doesn't change. Now listen, my approach is the same as Ronald Reagan's. You look at President Reagan, he stood for conservative principles, he stood unwaveringly, and he defended them in a way that brought people together, but he didn't give in on the other side. You know, I thought it was interesting Mr. Bogner took offense at the word timid. More than ironic, given that tonight is the 35th candidate forum in a row that David Dewhurst has skipped. Now, if he's unwilling to show up, if he sends instead a California political consultant who seems like a perfectly nice fellow to come in his place, if David Dewhurst is scared of the five of us, how on earth is he going to stand up to Harry Reid and Barack Obama?
Well, it's interesting you bring that up. Governor Dewhurst today is in Austin, Texas, meeting with a group of Special Olympians. So, Ted, I will bring the message to him that he should call the Special Olympians and say he'd rather sit up here with you and listen to you. Let me have my time. Let me have my time. You had yours. So, Governor Dewhurst has debated statewide multiple times with the candidates, but he also believes this election is not just about the candidates, it's about the voters. Today he was also in San Antonio talking to voters. He'll be in Tyler tomorrow. He didn't want to shortchange Tyler. He'll be in Tyler tomorrow doing an event. So Governor Dewhurst believes, really, you can look at his record. He's not interested in coming up here and having a legal debate with Ted Cruz.
I'd like to, can we all get a chance to this? If possible. You know, here's what I think has happened is I've gone around the state with these guys. We have in this country a philosophical conversation that needs to take place. Nearly 50% of this country is looking to the government for assistance and direction. The other 50% still believes in free markets and the Constitution. It is imperative upon us in this room to grow our numbers. We should be packed in here tonight. We should have grassroots efforts that grow this thing. Because if we don't stand up right now and educate the other side why socialism doesn't work, we're going to lose it. You can't get that earned success feeling by going to a mailbox and picking up an unemployment check. That's why we are off on this social plank when we talk about contraceptives and we talk about gay marriage. Obama's done a fantastic job of doing that, because what we need to be talking about is getting the federal government out of our lives so men and women can go to work. A strong family begins with a job. And that's why it's so important that this room multiplies. We must do a much better job of educating the other side. If you want to live in a socialistic society, move to Europe.
There you go.
Simple question. If somebody isn't going to engage you on the campaign trail, what do you think the probability is that they're going to engage you once they're elected? You know, for too long what we've had is politicians who will meet on their own time. Well, doing it on their time hasn't succeeded very well. And it hasn't provided an opportunity to engage those people very well. You know, politicians ought to serve us, not we serve them. That kind of idea of we'll deal with you on our own time is what has given pension plans that are so far out of line with the rest of the American people. Healthcare plans that don't touch any of us. I've said my first bill I put forward says benefits, pension, healthcare, etc. First bill. They can be no better for Congress and their staff than the midpoint of the private sector. Eliminate the hypocrisy. People ought to meet on your time, not on theirs.
I know a Democrat who told me the other day that she was going to vote in the Republican primary because she was going to vote for David Dewhurst because she didn't want a conservative to win the Senate seat. That's her perception of the Lieutenant Governor. Now, first of all, I honor him going to meet with the Special Olympians. This is an extraordinary group of people that have had to work harder in their lives than I've ever had to, because God decided to give us each different gifts and abilities, and I honor him for honoring them. I think that's great. I don't think it necessarily excuses him from everything else that he's missed, but that's definitely his choice. He's made that choice, and he knows how everyone in this room feels about him. It's pretty plain. So that's okay for me. But I was standing in a room when he said just 2 weeks ago that he helped craft the TSA bill with Dan Patrick in the Senate. Now, if we want to talk about courage for a minute, I realize that being pro-life in Texas is a gimme, and I think that being pro-Second Amendment in Texas is a gimme, but when the TSA is molesting children in the middle of an airport, you better grow up here real fast, because I'll tell you right now, it is okay to be for the kids when they're inside the womb, but you don't protect them when they're outside. We've got a serious problem. The violation of our children for supposed safety in this country has gone way too far. Our children are being violated and molested by perfect strangers because it's more convenient for their parents to travel that way, and we need state legislators who are going to stand up and fight for it. So give me a break about standing up to Washington.
I think it's important that we have a discussion about moderation and conservatism. A true conservative will not compromise on matters of principle. I have every right tonight to fly to Nevada and have a financial transaction with a prostitute. It's legal there, but that doesn't make it right. And so there are matters of principle that Republicans right and left are willing to compromise on. And if it's not in the book, we should not be compromising. All right? We've got to get back to the book. No compromise on the book. And so when people use the word reform, that word makes me almost hurl. Because you should never compromise. The word education is not in here. The word environment is not in there. I like clean water, but it's not in the book. The EPA needs to go, that's right. And so does the blasted Fish and Wildlife Service. Those are our lizards, thank you very much. And I could go on and on. I will preach the constitutional gospel to these people that have gone the dark side and try to get their people in their states to bring them back to reality.
questions for Mr. Cruz, and you'll have 2 minutes. Mr. Cruz, Lieutenant Governor Dewhurst's campaign charges you with anti-U.S. actions related to your dealings representing Chinese interests in a lawsuit regarding a patent. Some of the chatter that this has invited makes it look like you are helping the Chinese engage in industrial espionage to undermine our manufacturing base. Mr. Cruz, I want you to look the people in this room in the eye, and I want you to tell us, sir, have you sold our country out to the Chinese?
Not remotely. I appreciate the chance to address this issue. In the last 4 weeks, David Dewhurst has spent $1 million a week in nasty attack ads, going entirely after me. This weekend, his team doubled the buy. So they're now spending $2 million a week in attack ads for the next 2 weeks, telling every Texan that I'm a red Chinese communist who wants to eat your children. Let me tell you, the ads are filled with lies. They're fundamentally deceptive. I would encourage everyone to go to our website, tedcruz.org, click on the link, get the facts. There are 11 lies that are in there, but let me tell you the 2 most important lies that are in those attacks. This concerns a private civil case between 2 commercial tire companies, one of which is based in China. I work at a very large law firm that was hired to handle the appeal in that case. That's the basis of his attack. The 2 lies he doesn't tell you. The man David Dewhurst describes as, quote, an American manufacturer. 20 years ago, he moved his entire factory to China. This was never a lawsuit between a U.S. company and a Chinese company. This was a lawsuit between 2 Chinese tire factories, and it didn't impact even a single U.S. manufacturing job. The second lie is he said, this is my record on U.S. intellectual property. I didn't even argue this case. You want to know my record? Look to a case I argued last year in front of the U.S. Supreme Court. I represented a major manufacturer against a Chinese company that had stolen a patent. And at my urging, the U.S. Supreme Court, by a vote of 8-1, upheld a $5 million verdict against the Chinese counterfeit. That's my record, and this is all smoke and mirrors. It's the same tactic Barack Obama is doing. Obama doesn't want to talk about Obamacare or the debt or 25 million people out of work, so he tries to do distractions. David Dewhurst doesn't want to talk about his tax and spend record. He doesn't want to talk about the wage tax or increasing spending, so he wants to talk, and he's spent millions of dollars of his own money trying to talk about Chinese mining tires. The stakes are too serious for these distractions.
Ted, we don't believe you want to eat anybody's children, but we do believe that you've seen right there why he gets paid tens of thousands of dollars by this Chinese company. He's very eloquent. Here's what he overlooked. He signed his name, his signature, his name to the document saying he was the counsel of record for the Chinese company. This Chinese company stole $26 million of intellectual property off a U.S. person. $26 million. 40 people in Sarasota, Florida, out of a job. They design tires. They sell tires. Apple designs the iPad. They design tires. And Ted's defending them. And then he says, no, don't hold me responsible. When he's taking credit for General Abbott's record, he's responsible for everything. But when we come down to somebody he's defending, he's saying, no, they didn't pay me tens of thousands of dollars. I don't even really have anything to do with this case. Believe the